Alrighty, I'm here today with RebeccaMetz. Give us a thumbs up, Rebecca. Woo! You might know her from Shameless, because she has none. Also, she's currently in Better Things on FX, which is doing fabulously. And she has played the mom on Coop and Cammy. She is a well-revered actress for over 20 years. And we are delighted to have her here to get serious with some mind-bending questions. But first and foremost, we must also introduce her as cat mama of 3 and wine connoisseur.
Indeed.
Tell me, do you ever give the cats wine to drink?
No, they're not interested in wine, and we're not interested in them having any. So it works out very well.
Okay. Nothing sort of like slips off the bottle at night?
It's not, I've never met a cat who's interested in wine.
Oh, wow. Do you believe that your cats are friends of yours from past lives?
No, I don't really, no. I know that there are people who, like, when it's time to adopt a cat, will sort of see a cat or an animal online and fall in love with it. I have to sort of pick them up and hold them. Like it is an energy thing for me. But I don't think of it as a past life thing. I just think of it as like a personality. It's an individual, you know, like what one of our cats that we adopted last December, we went to a great shelter called Best Friends, and I picked her up and I just burst into tears. You know, we'd been going around meeting a whole bunch of cats, and I picked her up and I just started crying, and Andy was like, well, it's this one.
And every time there's a different reaction when you hold them.
Yeah, I mean, we're bonded. She's right behind me. I had surgery not long ago, and she's my little nurse cat. She's always in the room with me, keeping an eye on me.
She's healing you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let's get to the standard questions we ask everyone.
Okay.
Number 1, how would you describe the taste of a banana to someone who's never had one?
I wouldn't. I would say that language is insufficient to describe something as subjective as the taste of something, and I would say you should just have a banana or smell it. I would say it tastes like it smells, so you could smell one, but I wouldn't try.
A banana tastes like it smells. I've never even thought of that one. Wow. What would you do to someone who can't smell?
I would say taste one, or I would say that it's just not, you just might not be a person who's going to understand what a banana tastes like. If you can't smell, then even if you taste it, you're not going to be able to taste it. So, you know, some things just aren't for us.
Some things aren't. The texture though, right? Do you like bananas?
I do. I like bananas. Okay. My husband really does not, so I don't have them very often. I love bananas Foster, which is like, you know, caramelized bananas in caramel and rum.
So you like alcoholic bananas?
Sure.
All right, so let's ask the next standard question, which is, when we get to consciousness, every child has a moment in their life where there's an awakening, right? And it's going to often be called a existential life crisis. So when do you remember having a moment as a child that it was really, wait a second, something's not right here, and there's a sense of wisdom that came through you? So the question is, when did you have your first existential life crisis as a child?
I am not sure if this qualifies, but this is the answer that you're getting, because I later learned when I learned object permanence. So I remember I was watching probably Sesame Street and realized, like, I was watching Sesame Street and I went in the other room to go do something, have lunch or whatever it was, and I came back and the people on Sesame Street had kept going while I was out of the room. And it was like the first time that I realized that they weren't waiting for me, that, you know, Sesame Street was going on about its business regardless of what I was doing, and that there was like a whole world of things going on regardless of what I was doing. rather than, rather than everything being about me, which I think
So
is
you were not the center of the universe.
it's outrageous. Yes, but I remember learning that.
Wow. And then how old were you at this point?
Probably 3.
Whoa, you have any memories before that?
I think that I remember like being in my crib. I have visions of what it looked like. And I remember being frustrated with my parents that they were not understanding what I was trying to communicate. I don't know if that's real, but I'm right about where my crib was. So that I think I have some pretty early memories, but I don't know.
There are some people who go way back, others nothing.
I'm not good with numbers or ages, so like I have no idea when that was or how old I would have been or any of that, but I do remember sort of looking out the crib bars at my parents and being like, ugh, why don't these people understand what I'm trying to say?
Did that ever change? Did they ever understand what you're trying to say?
It's gotten better. I think I became a better communicator.
Did you have any connection with an aunt or auntie or a outside of the family, but a familiar figure that you found a deeper connection to than your parents?
I don't know about deeper than my parents. I mean, I have wonderful aunts and uncles and cousins, and I had all of my grandparents plus a great grandmother until I was into high school. So I was very lucky to have good relationships with a lot of people in my family. I can't say deeper than my parents, but different personalities and people. That my family used to joke that I was actually my aunt's daughter because we were in many ways more similar on the face of things than maybe I was with my mom. I don't think that's true, but that's what people used to say.
But you don't believe that was true. You think that was because maybe often if a woman has a child, it's alien to them and yet they are reacting like another family member.
I just think the ways in which we are like our parents, or I am like my parents at least, are just subtler than, it's not always so obvious. My mom is pretty soft spoken and reserved and I am not, and I think that's what people are reacting to. But we are very similar in other ways. It's just not always the most obvious thing.
So do you remember having a change in your perception or how you behaved in the world as a result of that moment when you were that young?
I think it just kind of expanded my worldview. It made me start to get curious about what was going on when I wasn't paying attention, what other people were doing when I was off doing it. It made me sort of turn my focus outward a little bit and realize that other people were living lives independent of me that might be interesting to think about.
And you grew up as an only child, correct? Mm-hmm. Did you have other children in your household a lot of the time, whether it's from people down the street or other family members?
Yeah, there were lots of kids in the neighborhood really close by. So we would, and that this was in the 70s. So we would go out and just like ride our bikes or leave for hours upon hours, and our parents had no idea where we were. And that was, you wouldn't get arrested for doing that. So yeah, there were lots of kids in the neighborhood, and we would go on all sorts of ill-advised adventures.
And do you think that changed your perception of the world as well?
Probably. I mean, I think it, cultivated a little bit of a sense of exploration in me, a little curiosity. Fortunately, I didn't get into any big trouble doing that. So I didn't learn any incredibly hard lessons, which I certainly could have. But yeah, just more of that sense of sort of curiosity and wanting to explore beyond, your immediate surroundings.
And when did a penny drop that you wanted to go into entertainment and acting? happen?
My parents are both classically trained singers, and so there was always a lot of music in our house, and they were part of various choruses and organizations that would do theater. And when they needed kids, I was always involved. So it was sort of part of our lives from as early as I can remember. But I always credit the Muppet Show with sort of making me realize that that's what I wanted to do with my life. Like, that's what I wanted to do for a living, was what they did, be in a theater and running around like crazy backstage. And, you know, I think it's the Muppets are to blame for my life path.
And your favorite Muppet is?
I won't do it. I just won't do it. There's too many good ones.
Okay, let's talk about Muppets that reflect aspects of your personality.
Great.
So let's talk about your relatedness to animal.
I mean, Animal, like Animals, the punk rocker, Animals, the like joyful rage who destroys things for fun, and like Animals pure id, which, you know, everyone needs to be in touch with. Maybe not, you know, you got to have a rein on it, but yeah, Animal, there's got to be a little bit of Animal in all of us.
And Beaker?
Oh, Beaker. I don't.
Most people will be like, oh, Beaker, wait.
Oh,
what?
please. You'd have to work pretty hard to stump me on the Muppets. Beaker, my favorite thing about Beaker is, you know, I think we immediately think of him as this sort of victimized, put upon, meek being in the lab, but Beaker talks back. Like, Beaker is sneaky. We used to, in high school, my friends and I used to rent these VHS tapes that were like compilations of Muppet moments. And I remember one where Beaker, something has happened and Beaker is angry and he just sort of looks at Bunsen Honeydew and he goes, "Your mama." Like, Beaker talked back. I think Beaker flipped him off once. Beaker had more personality than he gets credit for, and I love that about him.
So he's got a secret brew.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Beaker's got opinions about everything.
Then give me an unexpected Muppet apart from Beaker that you have a huge fondness to that people wouldn't expect.
I love Crazy Harry, who's the guy who just sort of shows up once in a while and blows things up. Like, he's got just TNT. He would be in sort of the animal chaos Muppet id category, but
more than Bonzo?
Gonzo? Who's Bonzo?
Gonzo, sorry.
Okay, Gonzo is the weirdo, the sort of like eccentric, the oddball. You can't have Muppets without Gonzo. He's wonderful. But Gonzo doesn't, well, he does create chaos, but Gonzo's like a pure artist. Gonzo is driven solely by inspiration, whereas Crazy Harry just likes to blow things up. And I respect that. He's a Muppet of singular purpose. He loves what he does. And yeah, I think it does say something about, like, you know, a lot of my acting career, at least early on, was sort of like, you know, the action of the scene is going on here, and I would sort of show up and say something rude and leave, which I think is a very Crazy Harry kind of energy. Like, he'd just pop his head in, stir things up, and get out. And I like that about him.
So there could be the whole Rebecca school of Muppet acting and how to connect to your inner Muppet.
We have upstairs in our house, we have a big poster that's the periodic table of Muppets, and it lists like every Muppet and who performed them, and it has their eyes, and I review it sometimes.
So what was the worldview you gained from watching the Muppets, apart from are you a singular of purpose person?
No, I think, I think there's most of us, there's a lot of aspects of us. People are complicated. So there's, you know, lots of different Muppets pop up in my personality. But I think the worldview, what it did for my worldview was just like, wild creativity. I'd never seen anything like it. I don't think most people had ever seen anything like it. It was just sort of the idea of like taking the lid off what you think the world is and shaking it up and coming up with something different that I think has served
And
me
how
better.
did you perceive the hosts each week to be? Did it make a difference, or were you watching it really for the Muppets?
I was really watching for the Muppets. I didn't know who any of those people were. And now that we go back and watch them, some of them obviously we know who they are, but some of them, they were famous in the 70s and they have been lost to the decades. So they show up and you're like, who are these people? And why do they look so bizarre?
You mean without any Botox?
Without any Botox, and just what they wore, and their hair was wild, and like just, you know, things in the 70s looked a little different. And sometimes were wildly inappropriate. The whole Muppet Show is airing on Disney Plus now, and they have a content warning but in front of some episodes saying like, this episode contains things that are culturally inappropriate, and we just want to acknowledge that. They didn't cut anything, but they just acknowledged, you know, which I think is healthy. But no, I never really cared who the hosts were. I was there for the Muppets.
Now, did you have a moment where you realized that adults were just full of?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that was sort of my working assumption from the very beginning.
And how did you cope with authority figures at school?
Not well, not badly, not badly, but just, you know, there's a lot of talk these days about like millennials and Gen Z feuding, and we're Gen X and everybody forgets about us. But one of the characteristics of Gen X is that we don't trust anybody and we don't think anybody knows what they're talking about. And I'm very Gen X in that way. I've never, if someone can demonstrate through their words and actions that they know what they're talking about, I will believe them. But I have never been a person who takes someone at their word just because I've been told that they're in a position of authority. That's just not my personality.
So you wait for the check to actually arrive rather than spending it. Absolutely. And how has this worldview helped you over the last year with COVID?
Goodness. I mean, I think it's just been, obviously we've all been bombarded by a ton of conflicting information that changes every day, and it's, you know, gets confusing and hard to keep track of. And I think having a healthy sense of skepticism and a strong habit of critical thought and independent thought has been very helpful this last year, because as you get all this information, you know, to sort of stop and say, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. This can't be true, and also this be true. I'm gonna use some common sense here, base this on my experience, err on the side of caution. And, you know, in my view, it's better to listen to, say, a Fauci than say a Trump. And then, so yeah, a bit of an independent streak. I don't know if I'm probably not supposed to say that, but
when it comes to the experience of lockdown, COVID, and how you saw the world before and how you're going back into the world still as an entertainment professional, have you found that you wish to do stuff that's lighter or maybe even more meaningful? Or do you find that you've actually shifted a little bit of what projects you want to do?
You know, it's interesting. I've been finding myself more interested in doing some drama lately. I don't think that's because of COVID. I just think it's about variety. You know, I've been very fortunate to be able to bounce around on lots of different kinds of projects. And for 2 years before COVID, I was on this Disney Channel show called Coop and Cammy Ask the World, which is a really sort of traditional family sitcom. Jokes, comedy, there was some substance to it, but it's a kid show, so pretty light. And I think for that reason, I've been sort of interested in maybe finding something a little grittier, darker, more dramatic, just because I like variety.
Have you felt that you've been more moved to give back with causes or stand up more in areas where you kept your voice quiet?
I think it really depends for me. It depends on the cause, it depends on the moment and kind of where my head is at. What COVID, I would think the biggest thing COVID has done is I was an introvert to begin with, and it has made me 100 times more an introvert. So it just depends on, whether I'm feeling like hibernating on a given day or getting into it with strangers. Largely in the last year, it would be on social media that kind of thing would be happening because we couldn't really go anywhere. And that is a minefield unto itself. So it really just depends on the specifics and the day.
So you haven't noticed change of how you're behaving on social media than before? Or, I know that there were some times that you were like, I'm going to take a break for a wee bit.
Yeah, not really. I mean, I left Facebook in the beginning of 2020, which it was a great decision that I've never regretted for a moment. So which platforms I participate in have changed. A friend talked me into joining TikTok, and so I'm on TikTok, but I'm very old to be on TikTok, and the children.
No, grannies are on TikTok.
I know.
Grannies are on TikTok. They do really well.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people. So I joined TikTok and I got a verified account because, I'm on a TV show or whatever. And immediately all of the kids were like, who is this lady who has 2 followers and she's verified? I've never heard of her. Who is this lady? So I got a good, clear message from the children that no one is impressed with me or cares who I am or knows who I am.
That would be where the Gen X thick skin comes in handy.
Exactly. Fine. Eventually, some other kids showed up and were like, she's on television. How do you not know who she is? And I was like, thank you, children, for leaping to my defense. But I don't think how I behave on social media has changed all that much, except in the last, I've gotten, if anything, I'll block anybody for any reason. If I just see somebody being a jerk once to someone else, I'll block them. I just don't. It's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a curated experience. I want it to be a pleasant experience. I don't feel any need to force myself to be exposed to hateful anger and, so I've probably gotten more willing, certainly in the last 4 or 5 years, to just see something and go, well, I don't want to see that again. And it's not the real world. It's just social media. So in that way, I guess my behavior has changed a little.
Have you had a friend who's got canceled unfairly?
No. I know people who have gotten a little bit of heat once in a while on social media. I don't really think personally that canceled is a thing. I think consequences are a thing. And I know a few people who have had some consequences, but not unfairly, and nothing that has ended their lives or careers,
And so what would Rebecca want to leave as a legacy? What would it be? Something physical you'd want to leave for other people? Would it be a form of knowledge that is passed down? What would you want to do to leave to make the world a better place?
I think two things: a body of work that people can continue to enjoy. I want to be a part of and a contributor to projects that make a difference to people, whether that's making them smile for a second or laugh for a second or feel something or whatever it is. That's one of the things I love about doing what I do. And I have always had a dream of having a giant cat sanctuary where just all the homeless cats could come. And I have this vision of a huge dry food dispenser.
Like a big industrial warehouse that is the dry food, kind of like Monsters Inc., where they go in to do the doors, but it's
not like that at all. Not like that at all. like a beautiful, like a beautiful ranch property. And there's just like a structure in the middle of it that's like a lucite wall and a little dispenser at the bottom of food. So all the cats can come and have a snack whenever they want to. I don't account for all the like cat puke and poop and litter boxes. And I've volunteered at many cat shelters, and they smell and they're messy. And my fantasy doesn't incorporate any of that. But I would like to make a contribution to help animals. It doesn't have to just be cats, but help homeless pets and wildlife and animals.
Well, there you have it. If you are a sanctuary place and you want RebeccaMetz to be the face of the sanctuary in a ranch setting, you know she is looking for it. So that vibration is out there right now, where you are going to text me when in a week's time, before this is even up, you're like, you will not believe someone is asking.
Set me up in a recliner off to the side and I'll just be there petting cats. And
I think that is a wonderful sentiment. So I want to remind everybody, put comments down there if you've loved hearing from Rebecca. If you want questions for her to answer, maybe we'll have her back. Make sure you subscribe. What do they need to do, Rebecca? They need to
subscribe, she says.
Subscribe. One more time.
Subscribe.
And now she's going to do it in a British accent.
Subscribe.
Oh, yes, I knew you were going to go haughty British.
I always do. I had an audition for a video game where they wanted sort of low British, and whatever I was doing, she was like, it's not Game of Thrones. You're not Cersei Lannister. And I was like, it's just my natural state.
Cersei. All right. Well, thank you for being with us. Make sure you subscribe and you hit the bell. We will be back and we're going to go into the bonus section. So if you subscribe, you're going to get the bonus section with Rebecca coming right up. And welcome to the bonus questions with RebeccaMetz. Before you go any further, remember to like and
subscribe
and
like
and make some comments if you want. This is where we have the fun bonus questions, and Rebecca is gonna let it rip at this particular point. All right.
Not the banana one again.
Banana one again. All right, she's got a better answer now.
No, I said not the banana one again. That's a really hard question.
Would you have preferred an orange?
No, it's not about the specific fruit.
I know it's not. Do you ever see repeating numbers?
I have my favorite numbers. I don't know if I see repeating numbers, but I do have my favorites.
They are?
I like 9s and multiples of 9.
Ooh, like 81. Look at me with my times tables.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go for 99. I didn't go for 90. I did 81.
Like if I'm gambling, if I'm playing craps, I always bet on 9s.
Ooh, so you're a bit of a gambler, huh?
Not really. I don't really know what I'm doing, which is why I just stick to favorite numbers.
Have you ever won big?
Yes, I won. So this might have been the last time I was in Vegas, and I was only there for a couple of hours because I drove out with friends, and on the way I found out I booked a job and I had to fly back as soon as we got there to do this job. So I was there for maybe 3 hours, and we played roulette, which I had never played before and is the chanciest game of chance there is. And I won like $300. My friends were so angry that I did so well on my first time out.
That sort of paid for the flight back.
Yeah, exactly. I just sort of played a little roulette, won a bunch of money, and was like, bye.
Oh my gosh. Do you have a food that you really wished you liked, but you just don't?
Yes, scallops, because my husband loves scallops, and I just really don't. And so he doesn't get to have them as often as he would like, because we don't really make them at home because I won't eat them.
And what is it about them? Are you allergic?
No, it's just texture. There's something about the texture I'm just not crazy about.
Most food that people don't like, it's a texture thing.
Texture, yeah. He can't have shrimp. He is allergic. He can't have shrimp. And so it's a compromise that we make.
Where have you not visited in the world, but you'd like to?
Australia and New Zealand.
Mm-hmm. New
Good
Zealand.
wine,
Well,
good
and
wine country out there. We like to go to wine regions. And, it's sort of like, there's no such thing as near Australia and New Zealand. Either you go to Australia and New Zealand or you haven't been anywhere near Australia and New Zealand. And I haven't been anywhere near it. So I really want to go.
Tasmania.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Where did you go when you had a horrible time, apart from having to fly back from Vegas?
Where did I go and have a horrible time? I think this isn't really going somewhere and having a horrible time, but I am convinced that I did something to Charles de Gaulle in a past life, because I have been in that airport several times and every time had an absolutely catastrophic experience. Once they blew up a woman's suitcase right in front of us and it took like 3 hours. I once missed my plane because the plane was still there, but the gate was closed and I had to get a hotel next door and I was sobbing and I was broke and I couldn't afford it. It was just a nightmare. I have had so many horrible Charles de Gaulle airport experiences. I clearly wronged him in a past life.
So you do everything you can to go through Heathrow then?
Absolutely. Or what's the other? There's another airport in.
You can go through Germany sometime.
Yeah, there's another airport in Paris.
Oh.
Orly. I was once booked on I went to visit a guy that I was dating who was in a movie, and I had to change in Morocco, and I had to change planes in Paris, and they booked me. I flew into Charles de Gaulle and out of Orly, so I had like 20 minutes to get to the other airport, which I did not do successfully. So that was another nightmare.
So Air France is just out of the question for you.
Not my best friend.
All right, what is your favorite phrase to say? Doesn't even have to be in English. Or one that you like saying. You're like, oh, that's cool.
Well, I always aspire to, I like don't threaten me with a good time. So RuPaul, I worked with RuPaul on an episode of a Netflix show that he had, and he, although I might have just heard him say this in an interview, he said that you should always have a list of like 10 clever retorts that you can say in any situation. Oh. And one of his favorites and one of my favorites is don't threaten me with a good time.
Don't threaten me with a good time. Mm-hmm. RuPaul would have those phrases. And I remember seeing that episode that you were in. Mm-hmm. I watched that show. I did. This is before COVID. All right. Nicknames that you were given.
Okay, this one you will appreciate because we know each other from college. And my roommate in college was Timothy Sean McGee, who decided, I don't remember how this even happened, but he decided to call me Cha-Cha. And so it didn't stick with anyone but Tim, and I don't think he even still uses it. But every once in a while, you know how you, in your years ago, decades ago, you got a magazine subscription or something, and now every once in a while you get mail from people who obviously bought that list from whoever sold it. And so I still get some mail addressed to Becky CC Metz because of the time that Tim decided to call me Cha-Cha.
Cha-Cha. I like it.
I don't know.
Like it.
I really don't know why. I don't remember why it came about, but there it is.
Well, there you have it. Well, we will say cheerio. And if you like Rebecca, you got to put the comments and let us know so we can have her back and ask us some even more crazy questions. And looking forward to the sanctuary for animals.
Yes, same.
Happening, and not just for Muppets called Animal.
No. Well, that would be a small sanctuary.
How many animal Muppets were there? Did they have more than one?
Probably, but we don't like to acknowledge that because it ruins the illusion. There's only one animal.
Thank you, Rebecca, so much for being with us. And we hope you will like and subscribe. And we will always put in the description what she is up to next. Okay.